how's your summer going so far?
Oh, it has been fabulous. I am thoroughly enjoying our still busy but a little bit more relaxed schedule, and the sunshine is amazing. And it started out super, super hot, but we have been able to get some cooler days in with less humidity, and I have to admit those are my favorite. And Kara, I have to tell you, since we're talking about summer, God is so amazing. So I have to give you a little bit of a story. We've been walking regularly, my family and I, and we walked yesterday during the day, but then we decided to do an extra walk last night. And at first I wasn't going to, but then I'm like, no, I want to spend that time with our seventh grader, and I just want to enjoy some quiet and some peace outside. You will never believe what we saw. We have a creek that's just a little bit down the road, and there was a mother deer with her fawn, who I'm telling you had to have only been a few days old, if that. And the fawn was nursing while they were standing in the creek. It was the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. And deer are my favorite. Like, if anybody knows me, they know that deer is very symbolic for me. And whenever I see one, it's a complete and total hug from God. He gave me not one, but 2 hugs yesterday for taking that extra walk with our little one to connect with him. It was amazing.
Oh my goodness, don't you just love that? It is, baby, to witness it. And I know you were thinking, oh, I wish I had a camera or video.
Actually, he brought his binoculars because he's a bird watcher.
Oh, cool.
So
Good, yeah.
Like, zero in on it with the binoculars. So, it was as though I was standing right next to them. It was amazing.
Oh my goodness. And isn't it just amazing? It's so awesome. You were talking about walking, and like at least once a week my husband and I would go to a nearby park or whatever just to walk, just to exercise. And we were there, and it was really hot and humid this one particular day. And I'm a weakling when it comes to, it's hot, it's humid, and we're out walking, and we're walking at a quite a nice pace, to like keep the heart rate up or whatever, and everything else. So, and I'm like, okay, it's too hot, it's too humid. I'm like, okay, I don't know if I could go another roundabout the thing. I guess it was a mile around or whatever. I'm not sure. And then all of a sudden this cool breeze just came, and just cooled us off. My husband was like, Cedar, look at that. God just sent you a breeze, because he's always like pushing me, right?
Yep.
Like, you can do it. You can keep going, huh?
I said, we need that, don't we, from our husband?
Oh, I definitely do. Yes, get it. Any type of excuse for me. I'll say an excuse, but honestly, it was hot. It was getting humid. I was getting tired, And he's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, oh, yay. And and then all of a sudden, it's like we just hit this spot, and it was like this wind, this cool breeze, like came from like just right there. It's like just meant for us,
I love it.
And I'm going, oh, okay, like, how can I not? That was like a second wind to say, keep going, It's like, okay, well, I guess I can go that extra round I wanted to go through. But nature is just one of those things that you look at and you go, how can people say there is no God?
Oh, I completely agree. Completely.
How? When you see the deer, when you see them nursing, when you see the birds and how they fly and how beautiful they are, and just the coloring, and then the nature of, all around us, just a spider web. As much as I don't like spiders, I mean, that is just amazing. That is, you see the hand of God everywhere.
Oh, and flowers. If you look at
yes,
flowers, and you look really closely, like, they are all so different. And the textures and the colors and the way that the colors are weaved in on the petals. I mean, literally, he has like woken me. Well, I've had a few seasons in my life where I've just appreciated him and his creation more than usual, like not taking it for granted as much, but just really soaked it in. And for whatever reason, this year has been that for me. Like, I look, and instead of just seeing flowers, I see the beauty and the detail of the flowers or the different shades of green. I don't know about you, but here in Michigan, we have so many different shades of green in the trees, the grass, the stems, the leaves. It is just beautiful, just beautiful.
And that's the beauty of it, and one of the times we were out this past weekend, my husband and I, we just happened to take a selfie of the two of us, right? And we were looking at we didn't see the picture, I think, until yesterday. And of course, we're in the picture, right? And we're like trying to see, is this a keeper? We delete it. But you know what stood out the most on that picture? What? The sky behind us.
Oh, yes.
That was the most beautiful thing in that quote-unquote selfie. Yes. It was not even about us.
Yes. He made the comment yesterday that the sky is perfect color, the perfect everything. He goes, Mom, this is this kind of sky that I just absolutely love. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. It's like beautiful. There's no humidity. There were hardly any clouds, although it's super pretty when there's those puffy clouds too. But yeah, right. God is just, and it's always different, isn't it? Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a sunset and or a sunrise that have been the same any day.
I know. And that's what I'm saying. And it's like, I looked at that picture and I'm like, because we're trying to decide, like I said, does it go to the trash bin or what? And it's like the most good looking thing on there was the sky.
Well, now you have to tell me, as well as all of our listeners, did you guys keep it or did you put it in the trash bin?
Oh, no, we kept it.
Good.
We kept it, and, we're just going like, yay, nay. Oh, honey, why are you frowning on this one? There's, how you do, right? You're just kind of sliding through. And then we get to one, and we're like, oh, my goodness, look at that sky. Look at the beauty, And it was like, the focus wasn't even on us, because it just, the sky behind us was just so magnificent. It was in the morning. It was this past Saturday morning when we had taken that picture, I believe. And it was just so crisp. It was so blue. And it was just so, just beautiful. And I'm like, okay, so no, we just got to keep this. I don't even know what we look like on it. I honestly don't. My tongue could have been hanging out. I have no idea.
That right there is
the sky stole the show.
That right there, though, is such a spiritual analogy. Like, if we're living our lives the right way, if we're living them for Christ and for Christ to be seen through us, then we aren't even seen in the picture, even though we're supposedly the main event. But God is being seen through us. So that sky, God's creation, was being seen and was magnified more so than you guys. You are a spiritual analogy. How do you feel about that?
Unworthy. I feel unworthy. It is such a cool analogy, but it's like, it kind of reminds me of that scripture, and I believe it's in Psalms, correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, but where it says, like, who am I that you are mindful of us?
Oh, yes.
That you are mindful of me. Who am I that you are mindful of me? Because when you see us and then you see the sky, and it's like who are we, right? Compare it in the beautifulness, the vastness of everything that's around us, and that's just what the picture took. I mean, the camera shot,
Oh, right.
It's like, you created this, like, who are we? Like, do we even need to be in this picture?
Right.
It's like, it reminds me, of that particular scripture. So you're so right. It's like, when you look at it and you're like, my God, like, you just, how? Why do you even put up with us?
I know.
You have all this majesty and this beauty that doesn't sin. The sky doesn't create any issues.
Right.
It doesn't cause any problems, and everything else. And it's like, I don't know. It's just one of those who am I moments, But I'm so glad, and that obviously was not our intention. We were just trying to get, a picture of us while we were at, the thing. But then look at that. It's like, look at God, and then the whole thing, and then the star of the show ends up being the sky.
Absolutely. And we didn't plan this.
So I love it.
That just goes right along with what our topic of today is. It goes so
It truly is.
Topic of the book that we're going to talk about.
And for those of you who have been currently listening, we are wrapping up. Well, actually, I can't say wrapping up. We are continuing our great summer reads series. And for those, if you guys want to hear about the previous 4 episodes, we talked about some of Sherry Swalwell's, my fabulous co-host, some of her really, really good books, fiction books that are coming out. And so if you haven't had a chance to listen to those episodes, please, you want to just go back and just kind of listen to them. She talks about a couple of her books in depth and in detail and why she wrote them and what they're about. And there's also links to purchase them. So if you just feel free to go back and do that. And in this one, we're going to continue. And this one is going to be more about some of my favorite books. Some of my, I guess, greatest of all times as far as my books that I have read list. Here. So, but to everyone who's listening, welcome to the Cheer Podcast. And we're going to continue the summer read series and and for those who, we're talking about Christian fiction today. We are continuing to talk about Christian fiction today. And for those of you who are not familiar with Christian fiction, because I've noted there are a lot of people out there, and they're just kind of like, well, I mean, there's books and there's clean reads, and and so kind of what's the difference? And like we mentioned in previous podcasts, the difference between Christian fiction and just like regular clean fiction or clean reads is that the message of Christ is interwoven throughout the story. And so some of the different type of genres that we mentioned before that are part of Christian fiction is Amish is a genre in Christian fiction, where if you like to read stories about Amish culture books or that time period, or I say time period, there's still Amish currently, but if you just like to read about the Amish, there's those type of books that are under the Christian fiction category. There's contemporary type of books, which is very much modern, very much today's times, and there's historical type of books, just like in your regular secular reads genre of books. You have almost the same type of books in the Christian fiction genre. There's mystery, suspense, and thriller. That's another category. There's political intrigue, military action, romance, speculative, kind of sci-fi, kind of fantasy, otherworldly type of books, and just women's fiction, which is mainly just dealing with issues that women face. But again, these are under like the Christian fiction genre. So if you love to read, but you've stopped picking up just books out of the general market because they were either too graphic in one area, too explicit, in another area, or you had to turn a whole bunch of pages, just to get back to the storyline that you were interested in for whatever reason, feel free to pick up a Christian fiction book. You can find them everywhere you find your regular books. But you can also find them on places like ChristianBook.com, which has a huge selection of Christian fiction books. And so if your genre is, if you like romance, for instance, but you're like, I like to read, romance that at least has the Christian faith interwoven throughout the story, then that you could just go there and you can just read that. And they tend to be very clean reads, not very explicit, not explicit and not graphic. So I just kind of wanted to review that again for those who may not exactly know what the Christian fiction genre is. And I also would like to mention a few authors and friends who I also love, and their books that I have either actually read and or help review and or help crit, these books, and they're in the current marketplace. And of course, we did Sherry Swalwell last weekend. We did Sherry Swalwell in a previous episodes, and some more authors I just kind of want to quickly mention are Peg Thomas, She writes historical fiction. You can find her books on Amazon, Christian Book, BookBub, wherever you find your books. Her first name is spelled Pegg. Last name is Thomas. Robin Patchen. She is also a best-selling author. Her books are uh, um, she has tons of them out there. And she writes kind of like romantic suspense, I think is that genre, what it's called. And again, her name is Robin Patchen. Her last name is spelled Patchen. Another one is a good friend of mine, Jerica Kingston. And you can find her book on Amazon and other places. And Jerica is Jericha. Her last name is Kingston, Kingston. Another one, if you like really sweet romance, Christian romance, is Candace Sue Patterson. She's another one. And Candace is Candice, Sue Patterson, Candace Sue Patterson. Another one is Susan Crawford. Another one I want to recommend is Janice Bokoff, and her last name is spelled Boekhoff. And so all of those I know personally, have met personally. They're friends of mine. So obviously I would recommend all of their books. You can, like I said, you can find them anywhere. If you just want to plug in their names on Google or whatnot, you can go to their websites and or just find their books on Amazon. In the different categories and everything. Now, one that I am not friends with, who I wish I was friends with, is New York Times best-selling author Joel C. Rosenberg. And his name is spelled exactly like it sounds, Joel, Joel, middle initial C, last name Rosenberg. And he is a New York Times bestselling author. He's also you probably have seen him on multiple news, different programs, because what he writes about is political intrigue. And he is someone's books, if you like political intrigue, if you like action, if you like a little bit of romance, when I say a little bit, it's a little bit. It's not much romance in his books, but it's very military action. It's very terrorist, Islam, different countries, Russia, Israel, America, just tons of political intrigue. I just don't even know where to begin, to just talk about his books. However, if you plug in his name and you put in author Joel C. Rosenberg, you'll pull up, immediately all of his books will come up, because he just sells so many of them, because a lot of them that he has written like maybe 10 or 15 years ago are so relevant to today. And I'm reading two of his now. I'm going to start on another one, but The Kremlin Conspiracy, I believe, is one of his latest releases, and another one is called Jerusalem Assassin. And I just can't recommend his books enough. That's why I'm going to stop, because I'll probably go into a whole bunch of it. The 12th Imam is another one by him. You'll be reading his books and you'll look at the date and you'll go, oh my goodness, he wrote this like in 2008, because it sounds like, he wrote it, now with everything that's going on politically. But again, it's definitely political intrigue, and it's definitely, that type of genre. But if you just like reading about the different things like that, then he's definitely one that you want to check out. However, today I want to focus on another author, and this is one of my favorite books of all time. And the name of the book is Redeeming Love, and it's by author Francine Rivers. And her name is spelled just like that, Francine Rivers. And this book has been on the ECPA bestseller list for years. The ECPA is the Evangelical Christian Publishers Association. And this book has been on there for years. Now, I cannot remember off the top of my head when the original version came out, but it's been many, many years ago. I want to say maybe at least 15. I say the original version because different versions have, the updated versions have come out more and more since then. I keep not updated, but because it's just always on a bestseller list somewhere that it's just constantly, being out there or whatnot. So for those who have not read Redeeming Love, I just kind of wanted you to just it's been not only on the ECPA bestsellers list. It's been on, I believe, the New York Times bestseller list, and just Publishers Weekly bestseller list. It's just one of those books that you just want to read. And I am just going to quickly read the back cover book blurb from it, just to kind of give you an idea of why it's such a beloved book among Christian fiction readers and non-Christian fiction readers. It's just one of those books that you get and you keep and you can read over and over and over again. But anyway, I'm going to start the reading of the blurb now. It says, California's Gold Country, 1850. A time when men sold their souls for a bag of gold and women sold their bodies for a place to sleep. Angel expects nothing from men but betrayal. Sold into prostitution as a child, she survives by keeping her hatred alive. And what she hates most are the men who use her and leave her empty and dead inside. Then she meets Michael Hosea, a man who seeks his father's heart in everything. Michael obeys God's call to marry Angel and love her unconditionally. Slowly, day by day, he defies Angel's every bitter expectation until, despite her resistance, her frozen heart begins to thaw. But with her unexpected softening comes overwhelming feelings of unworthiness and fear, and so Angel runs back to the darkness, away from her husband's pursuing love, terrified of the truth she no longer can deny. Her final healing must come from the one who loves her more than Michael does, the one who will never let her go. And in case you guys haven't quite figured it out yet, this is a powerful retelling of the story of Gomer and Hosea in the Bible. And Redeeming Love is a life-changing story of God's unconditional, redemptive, all-consuming love. This has been one of my favorite books forever. And even though I've read it a couple of times, and I think I've given away my copies of it, maybe one or two copies of it, paperback copies of it, it is just definitely one of those books that really hits hard. It's not a soft pedaling of life's issues, of when life just really deals you a bad set of circumstances. But yet it just ends on such a wonderful story. And like I mentioned, it's about, it's like a retelling. I can't say contemporary because it's based in the year 1850, but it's like a retelling of the story of Hosea and Gomer. And it's all about redeeming love. What did you think of the book, Sherry?
I read it. Well, I was given a copy of it. I hadn't even heard about the book. I was given a copy of it probably about 25 years ago because it was before I got married. And so the friend who gave it to me was one of those like you who gave away her copy and said, nope, you either keep it or pass it on. So I've done that.
Right.
Pass it on to others. But I always tell them to give it back because I want to be able to pass it on to other people. But so I read it 25 years ago. And then when Kara was talking about her favorite books and I was getting ready for our podcast this month, I reread it. And oh, my word, a 25-year difference in my life of the circumstances and just the different seasons that I've been in. I think I loved it even more the second time than I did the first time. And as much as I absolutely love the love story between Gomer and Hosea or Michael and Angel, two things that really stick out with me. So not only was Michael's the epitome of, unconditional love and patience and kindness. And he does nothing but love her. So that in and of itself is amazing. I'm not taking away from that part of the story, but that putting that aside, two parts of the story that really stick out to me, that really speak to my heart, was one where at the very end of the book, well, actually, before that one, the first one comes before that. So in life, in our spiritual journey, no matter how encouraging and no matter how wonderful the people in our lives are, we cannot grow to that next level. We cannot overcome and get delivered and be free from bondage and whatever it is that we're struggling with in our life, only solely through the help of our friends and family. Ultimately, bottom line, it comes down to digging in deep with God himself. And God shows that so clearly in the book, where Angel keeps running away from Michael throughout the story. But at the very last time that she runs away from him, Michael says, "I'm not going to go chase her anymore. She has to come back of her own free will." And she needed that time away. And I can't remember exactly. I think she was gone 6 months, 18 months, something like that. She was gone for quite a while. And God, in his love, he brought people into her life to keep her safe and to just kind of give her that shelter that she needed. But yet they stayed back. Like emotionally, they were kind and loving, and they gave her the shelter that she needed, the physical, like they gave her a job and clothes and food and stuff like that. So she was taken care of, but yet they gave her the time that she needed to spend with God, to have that one-on-one with God, and to have that growth time that we all need. Like if we don't come to him and let him be the one to heal our hurts and him be the one to mature us and help us to grow in the characteristic traits that he knows that we need and help us mature in our faith, it will just take so much longer. Like everybody needs that time with God. And I'm not saying like just one and done. Like it's supposed to be a lifelong growth with God, but everybody has to have that starting point. And that was so I loved that part of the book where it just really showed that starting point for Angel. It showed that she wasn't in love with Michael anymore. He wasn't her savior. God was her savior, and Michael was just the icing on the cake. Michael was the cherry on top. He was just the blessing that God gave her. So she did eventually go back to him. Sorry, spoiler alert. But then the other part of the book that I absolutely loved was when at the very end, a banker came into this like brothel area, and God used him to help save her, and not just her, but other children as well. And I'm trying really hard not to like ruin the whole thing, but the part that I loved was that God does that in our lives too. Like he will put people, they're called divine appointments, or they're called God incidences, or at least that's what we call them in our family. It's not a coincidence, it's a God incident. And I love how God shows up at the 11th hour, and he just lets us know that he's right there taking care of us and that he has a plan. And to those parts, like I said, I mean, the whole book itself is just amazing. And Michael's patience and his loving care and all of that is just amazing. But those two examples they just scream love to me. Like they just let me know how much God absolutely loves us. And it's a good reminder for me as a mother of young adults, as a wife, as a friend, as a sister, as a daughter, that I can't save my family. I can't save those that I love. The most loving thing that I can do is, quote unquote, let them go, meaning let them have that time with God. Let them have that encounter with God. And I pray that regularly over my loved ones and over my friends. God, please give them an encounter with you. God, please have an encounter with them. God, please show them how much you love them. And so those are just a few of the tidbits of the parts that I just absolutely love. But yes, from start to finish, I think the book is absolutely amazing. And I mean, we could sit here for hours and talk about the different ways that God just screams his truth through the author's words. Like the author did such an amazing job.
She really, really did. And something else I kind of want to touch on before we wrap up this particular episode on redeeming love is, and again, like Sherry, I'm trying not to. I'm
I know. I
like,
think
how can I talk about what I want to say without giving away too many spoilers, of the book? Because trust me, when you get this book, it is not going to be a waste of your time. It is going to be a very, very one of those books that I think that you're going to keep, that you're probably going to read again, and everything else. So, again, I just highly recommend it. And I'm also glad Sherry corrected me, because I said maybe 15 years ago, and she's right. It's 25 years ago, the original version when it first came out. The fact that it is still on multiple bestseller lists speaks to what we're saying about how great the book is.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And not all of these are just Christian fiction. Like I mentioned, like this ECPA and everything else. And of course, that's a Christian fiction. But they're going to highlight Christian fiction and everything like that. But they keep it current. That's something that they do monthly, like some of the best-selling books that's still out there. So even though it was written 25 years ago, it is still constantly being purchased. It is still constantly being read. It is still constantly being passed around. The word is still going around, not just in the Christian market, but in the secular general market as well. So that alone, I think, speaks to how relevant and relatable this particular book is. And one of the things that I just wanted to quickly mention was, if you remember in the back cover blurb, it talks about her being a prostitute. The book starts off when she's a young girl, and it kind of shows you how she ended up becoming that way. And it is not a pretty picture. And so you can see how the people, especially the male figures that she saw in her life, she just absolutely despised, and she could not stand them. And as far as she was concerned, especially during this particular time period in the mid 1800s, as far as she was concerned, they were like of only good for like one particular thing, right? She just did not really care for them. And she, as the book blurb says, she had a deep hatred for them. Then all of a sudden, along comes this guy named Michael, right? Who is so not like these other guys. It's like completely different. And it kind of sends her world in a tailspin. She doesn't know how to deal with this. She doesn't know how to, the emotions that rise up, the things, because for so long she's only seen men one way. And now all of a sudden there's this other guy that pops up and was like, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. And she's just kind of like, what? And again, it talks about her unworthiness. She doesn't feel worthy to be loved by someone, quote unquote, as good as Michael. And I think that relates so much to people today, and why this is one of the books that continually is on bestseller lists, secular, general, Christian, is because I think so many people feel unworthy when they come to Christ, or when people are witnessing to them about Christ. And someone say, have you accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? Or do you know about Christ? Or would you like to go to church to me? And the responses can be, oh, if I go into the church, lightning will hit that church, because you don't know the things that I've done. You don't know the things that I've seen. You don't know the things that I participated in. You don't know the things that I've committed. You just don't know. And your last thing you want is like me in your church. And I think a lot of people have that mentality before they come to Christ. Like, there's no way your church is going to accept me. There's just no way God's going to accept me, and everything else. But here's the spoiler alert. God already knows everything you've done. He already knows it. And he loves you anyway. It doesn't matter to him. If you come to him with an open heart and a faithful heart, and you want to learn more about him, and you want to know his word, and you want to have a relationship with him, none of that matters. It's as far as the east is from the west. And there's so many people out there that just need love. And I heard someone say, they kind of used the phrase, I've always wanted to be a part of a beautiful love story. Now, they were talking about romantic love. But the best love story there is a love that won't let you go no matter what. And how blessed are those who are able to actually find that in romantic love, in marital love. And God has blessed a lot of people with that. But it cannot replace. It's not even a close substitute for the enduring, steadfast, pursuing love of God. That is the ultimate love story. He gave his son to die on the cross for all of us, the saints and the sinners, for all of us. And all he asks is that you come to him with an open heart, that you learn more about him, that you embrace him. And so I don't ever want people to think like I'm too far gone, I've done too much. You just don't know. If they knew what I did, all the self-guilt, all the self-hatred, everything that we always feel, and we're just like, I just can't. I've just done too much. I've seen too much, and everything else. Like I'm just not worthy to come to Christ. None of us are. None of us are. And yet he loves us anyway, and he extends his hand out to us anyway. Is there anything you want to add to that, Sherry?
That was so beautifully said, Kara. That was just absolutely beautiful. I think the only thing that I want to add to that, and it's just a little side note, is from the back blurb, Kara did a fantastic job setting things up. But the author was very tasteful with how she wrote the book. So while you know what happened, she's not explicit. She's not graphic.
Right.
It's more of a, okay, I can fill in the blanks type of a thing versus I have to read it on the page. And the reason I say that is because I've had conversations with people who have dealt with trauma in their life, specifically traumatic things dealing with these types of subjects, and they'll talk about triggers. Well, be mindful that there could be triggers depending on what you've experienced in your life, but the way that the author describes it and the way that the author writes it is very, she does it in a very wonderful way, for lack of a better word. So it's not super descriptive. It's not super graphic. It's just more of a, you can fill in the blanks because, you're an adult, and so you probably have an idea of what's happening. But
it deals with the gritty situations of life, but it doesn't put the grit on you.
Exactly. Perfect way to say that. Mm-hmm. So, having said all that, Kara and I highly recommend getting this book and reading it. I hope that you guys are excited about it the way that we are. I was telling Kara when we talked about doing this this group of episodes to the month of August, how excited I was because I have my cup of coffee, I have my friend, I have books, I have Jesus. Like, what more could it's like the perfect balance and the perfect blend of being able to just share with you guys, our listeners. So if you want to hear more about Kara and find out more about her, please go head over to her website, KaraRHunt.com. If you want to find out more about my book and where you can buy them, some of them are getting an overhaul this summer. So if you look today and then you look a month from now, the titles and the covers might be a little different, but still the same great content on the inside. Every once in a while, people just need a makeover. Well, books do too. You can head over to my website as well, SherrySwalwell.com. If you have a speaking engagement that you would like me to speak at, or an event coming up that you would like me to speak at, you can sign up and invite me over on my website also, SherrySwalwell.com. Do you need prayer or encouragement? Do books like this with these topics hit a little closer to home and you need someone to talk to or a friend? You can get a hold of us one of two ways. You can either email us at cheeruppodcast@gmail.com. That's a little more private, and you can share things a little bit easier. But we also have a Facebook group, Cheer Up Podcast, as well. And that, we're building a community over there. And I just love the way that we are sharing back and forth with other people, getting to know each other, encouraging each other. So one of two options. You can either do it more privately through our email, cheeruppodcast@gmail.com, or head over and join our Facebook group, Cheer Up Podcast, or you can do both. We have had so much fun today with you guys. We love to hear your comments. We love to hear your thoughts. And as always, we always go back to John 16:33. These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. As Francine Rivers so adequately and beautifully described it through Michael and Angel's story, which is really Gomer and Hosea's story. There are bad things that happen in this world. We will have trials and tribulations. We will have trauma. We will have hurt. But God gives us peace. Ultimately, it all boils back to Him, and it all points back to God. He is the one who gives us the peace, and He is the one that has overcome. Always remember that. Have hope and cheer up, and we'll see you next week. We're going to be talking about another fantastic Christian fiction book. See you later.
Thank you.